Welcome back, everyone, to the Lunatic Sports Podcast, your favorite St. Louis sports podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Edwards, along with my co-host, John Love, and we are here getting ready to cover some wonderful things with St. Louis City, and also to talk about how Sporting Kansas, our bitter rivals, are coming back to town, but this time for the playoffs. John, what do you have? Minus some other
Dying,
than looks like
dying,
choking and death on your
choking.
end.
Yeah, well, this is what I get for bragging about my super healthy sparkling water that I'm drinking instead of beer tonight. That's karma coming back to me.
Yeah.
Um, but
That's what you
before
get.
we,
Stop being
yeah,
healthy on this podcast. We drink
it's
alcohol and
punishment.
we destroy our liver, and that is what
That's
this is
true.
for.
I can go, get some tequila or some vodka, pour that in, and see what we get. Um, I was going to ask you though, before we get started, what's your favorite food?
All-time favorite food?
Sure.
My go-to food, if I had to pick like one food that I always had to eat forever, it's going to be pizza. Do so
Delicious.
many things with it.
Yeah, I really surprised. I thought you were going to say it was barbecue.
You know, the barbecue is good. It's great. But it leaves me on the edge of my seat, and I think it raises my blood pressure a little much to have it every day forever.
A little too much salt,
It gets a little salty, the
a little
barbecue does.
salty, a little salty. I want you to know I thought of that while I was driving home today, and I almost texted it to you. And I'm like, no, 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 wait. I'm gonna wait and catch his reaction live.
If I wasn't still like trying to figure out what the heck a sleep schedule is again after that conference, I'd probably be in a better place.
Sleeping is overrated.
So
As
we did.
oh,
What else is overrated? Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, and that's what it's gonna be like for us on Sunday night because we have a 9:30 kickoff for our first playoff match. So no sleeping. I'm not regretting it. YOLO, as we said in our younger days.
The biggest thing that I'm running into here is the babysitter situation. And my wife, also being a huge City fan, has announced to me that if we don't get a babysitter, I'm not going to the game without her. So I'm trying to figure that out. So any of you listeners out there know of a babysitter who wants to make some easy money while my kids sleep, I got a job for him on Sunday night.
Shameless plug for please come watch my kids while I go to the game and you ignore it.
You know
I
what?
guess you can
Here's the
watch it at
thing.
home at your
They
house.
I have MLS season pass. They can watch the game. And if they don't have MLS season pass, it could be a great opportunity for them to catch it without having to, go to a bar on a Sunday night.
That's true.
My bar is very well stocked, as is my liquor and beer fridge. So,
Right.
win-win.
Should mention that this is one of the games that is going to be shown for free on Apple TV because it's going to also be shown on FS1, but still does not come with a bar.
Could you stop stealing my thunder because I'm trying to get people to come watch my kids, John?
No, but
My kids are sort of like angels, if angels were the opposite of what angels are now.
my daughter asked me about sitting still the other day, and her response to me was that little boys do not sit still. And I started laughing because I'm pretty sure the little boys she was talking about were yours.
You know, when they get tired, they crash hard.
They just like fall over, like they just play until they
Ewan
go to
does.
sleep. Yeah,
Ewan will legit just plow into the couch, and the next thing you know, he's bent over the side of the couch asleep. Oliver just stops moving and curls up with his blanket, and you see him in the corner of the couch, like looking completely dazed and confused.
kids, kids are the greatest. You know what else is
Man,
the greatest? City soccer.
City soccer. So St. Louis City SC did just have a game.
That was
It
not the
was
greatest.
not the greatest game, and I expected a different lineup out of the team, based on what we'd seen, how things had been going, but there were some weird pieces with it. So that first goal they scored was okay. The second one was unlucky. I mean, if you look at it again, um, everyone's I say everyone, there's people ragging on Tim Parker. Tim Parker lost his footing on the first goal. They did a good build up. They had the numbers. They
It was a
took
well
advantage
earned
of it.
goal. It was a well earned goal. I mean, like, shit happens. And like, even with the second goal, like, that's my justification for the second goal too. But like, the other team tries, right? They practice, right? It isn't just like 11 guys standing out there for Klaus to run at them the whole fucking game, right? Like they try. It's a well-earned goal. It's good build up, good cross back through. And I mean, Berger just couldn't get to it in time. That's just how it goes. And also Parker did stop an almost for like guaranteed goal like 5 minutes later too, though.
Oh, he did. And the other thing with that first goal is that was the one where the guy was standing like right in Berkey's line of sight, who was in an offside
Yeah,
position. And again, Berkey himself is not going to go and blame that guy, looking back at it or
right,
anything like that. But it does, if you're getting ready to lay out for a shot, you're going to do a second piece.
right,
The second goal,
right,
right? Tim Parker gets down, gets his leg on it. It just happens that he did so, and it deflected it right over Berkey.
right. For the second goal, yeah.
Yeah, for the second
I
goal.
I will say for that first one, Berkey did admit after the game in his post game comments that he did not really think it was an offside like player, or like that it wasn't like affecting the play, but he had to argue it because like this is his job, and he wants to win, so he's going to do it, right? um but yeah,
I think
he still
what
has to
we've
like
yeah, it is what it is. He's got to do it. He's going to at least appeal, because
right,
there's always, if you don't ask, you don't know, right? If I
right,
don't throw it out there that I need a babysitter on Sunday night, how are people going to know that I need a
right.
babysitter?
Yeah, if any of the
But
40 people at most who listen to this want to
especially if they
babysit,
hopefully listen to it before the game on Sunday.
right? Absolutely.
So it is what it is. But you got to ask, you got to at least try to see if maybe you'll get them to reconsider. Maybe there'll be a ruling that'll go in your favor. It was worth a shot. He didn't push it. He didn't just keep pushing it. He didn't keep arguing. He kind
Right.
of pleaded his case, realized he wasn't going anywhere, and moved on.
Right. I mean, well, he did hold the ball until like the ref confirmed that VAR looked at it and did not, recommend for him to go to the monitor. He did a little bit of shit housing on his own, holding on to the ball and like not letting play resume until that got confirmed. But he still wasn't like in his face, like really delaying the game, arguing over it. Like we've seen from some of our opponents this year that have definitely done that.
Yep. Yeah. And so I felt like he handled it professionally.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it was fine. The lineup, though, so when we got hot there, we had a fairly consistent lineup. And the one thing and the place that we've seen Watts, and this is the one that kind of really stuck out to me, is we've seen Watts or Nerwinski on the right side. And
Hmm.
Nerwinski's really played well as of late. And so that didn't bother me as much. But putting Watts at center, kind of as that defensive midfield role, I feel like it really kind of hamstrung us a little bit. Like we didn't have the same looks that I thought we would have had normally. And it just looked like the chemistry piece was off to me the whole way through after that.
Yeah, I mean, I, I knew Watts was in the game, but I also never really saw him. I think he got like 5 passes or 5 attempts, maybe. I think I saw like it was very, very low. And I don't remember seeing him much disrupting, which was the whole point of putting him there, is to have a second, heavy defensive midfielder. And kind of seeing what you do. One thing that I don't like is I've noticed both games that we played Seattle were games that well, I don't know. I was going to say that where we changed things, but then I thought about how coaches change things, you know, every week almost. So that's really doesn't even matter. It's just it didn't work against Seattle either time. But having Watts playing defensive midfield, it wasn't even just that. There were those issues, but also it removes Leuven, I think, from our entire buildup. You know, like we seem to be so much better when he's playing deeper next to Blom, because then he can distribute the ball forward and attack so much better. And we lose that when we play him higher up the pitch. So I'm not a huge fan of that.
No, I
Oh, I just
agree.
realized you've got the Blues game on behind you. That's I'll let you know if they score.
It looks like it's still 2-0 Blues.
It
So
is. It
um
is.
I didn't want to miss the game. I was watching the game, so um but no, I agree. I think we look better when Leuven's back there. I think it gives us a different attacking presence and allows us, because Leuven can attack and he can press well, but he also gets back and he covers well and he disrupts things, I think,
Mm-hmm.
better than Watts does in the midfield position. I think Watts has done a great job on the right side, but he hasn't played a ton of center defensive mid, right? He hasn't done that a lot this year for us because we haven't
Right.
needed him to because of Blum. And we needed him to in the second half, theoretically, because Blom was not going to play the full 90 with his
Right.
ridiculous travel schedule. But it just wasn't, it didn't look great to me. It made me concerned and it wasn't working, right? We were not getting
Right.
pushes offensively. Nothing was coming. And I felt like we waited so long to make those changes, the last changes and I felt like we needed
Right.
to make those sooner to try to press the game. And you and I have criticized Carnell. The one thing we've both consistently been angry about is when he subs at times in
Right.
games. Sometimes we feel like he waits too long to try to take the game in his own hands. Again, this was not a must win for us by any means. So I don't, I get that as well. But how do you not see that, hey, I need to change the pace of the game? More recently, I felt like he's been a lot more proactive in trying to
Mm-hmm.
take the game over. Uh,
Right.
and I just didn't see it this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things with that. I did hear in coach's post game comments that apparently, so last week we talked about how we were a little concerned about how much or lack thereof playing time that Indy got with the U23s. Well, it turns out that he had some sort of calf tightness or something. So they were limiting his minutes with the U23s, and then that's why he didn't start on Saturday too. But at halftime, him and Stroud come on in place of Blom and Watts. Okay, you're limiting Blom because he flew probably for 30 hours from the Ivory Coast back to South Africa to somewhere in Europe to fly to Atlanta to fly to St. Louis, if I remember correctly. So like, yeah, he's probably tired. Like 90 minutes is gonna be hard. I thought that was a very good change, but the next subs didn't come until the 76th minute, which was Big Sam. And I feel like Big Sam probably like we really could have used him probably at like the 60th minute for that game.
And I had this thought as we were already down 2-0 in the second half.
Right.
The only thing that made sense to me was for Carnell to not show his full hand to Seattle, who is very likely going to be who we play in the Western Conference Championship game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's big brain energy, right? Carnell's playing games within games.
Again, that's what made sense to me. If anything, I'm not saying that's what happened or what he
Mm-hmm.
was doing, but if you actually truly wanted to go out and try to win that game, you should have been making subs at the 60th minute.
Right. Well, and then Ostrak and Celio come on in like the 87th minute, right? They both came on
Yeah,
right
it
at
was
the
like
end.
it was like, what do we do? And they both looked okay, but I mean, they were
Right.
on the field for 8 minutes with
Right.
stoppage time.
Right.
And I thought Stroud looked good,
Yeah,
which again always hurts me to say.
that's
No,
true. I mean, I get it. I get it.
let
It's
me
hard
rephrase.
being
It
wrong.
hurts. It hurts me to say it to you.
That's true.
It's
I
not that
thought
it hurts to
Indy
say.
I
I
thought
thought
Indy
Indy
looked
looked
really
really
good
good.
defensively.
Hmm.
Um how did you feel about him offensively? I felt like he was doing some Stroud like giveaways. So see, I can
He
recognize that there's a
his
problem.
Yeah, yeah. He had his touch was off.
Yeah.
And I noticed this even in the game with watching Stroud, and I was telling Lindsay during the game, I was like, the most frustrating part about Stroud is
Right.
that he makes all of the right runs and gets in the right position offensively, and then the ball comes to his feet, and you're like, oh shit, not again.
Not again. Right. He was like, wait, what do I
Uh,
yeah, it's like okay, like Talladega Nights, right? When they're interviewing yeah, yes, exactly. What do I do with my hands? But it's what do I do with my feet? Yes, 100%. That is the reference I was going for there. I'm so
so
glad you knew immediately.
so the funny thing is with Stroud, right? And you'll see people who are big Stroud fans like, well, he's got, 5 goals and blah blah blah. Well, yeah, it's because he makes the right runs. He puts himself in the right
Right.
position. The problem is that if he had even half as good a touch as I feel like he should have, he'd have 10 or 12 goals
Right.
because he's
Well,
in the right position. He'd also be costing us a shit ton more money, or Austin would have never let him go
right.
if he had better touch. So like I get that piece of it too. And he does bring in
Sure.
tenacity. So like I I still don't think he's a starter, but he brings something different off the bench.
Right. So I was thinking about him on Sunday. Was it Sunday that we talked about the game? I feel like it was. A little bit
Probably.
like an hour or two after we talked, I realized, Stroud is the perfect embodiment of quote unquote energy drink soccer. Like, I think he can only be successful in this system because his best strengths are just nonstop pressing and counter pressing. And then I would also add his other big strength is pissing off the other team. Like that's that's a
He,
very unique skill he has.
yeah.
And I'm here for
I,
it. I'm here for every second of that.
so thinking back through the subs, right? I don't necessarily disagree with the subs we saw. What I really
The
wanted to see in
timing.
that 87th minute, if we're going to sub that late and give somebody some minutes, I would have loved to have seen Alm come out on the field finally.
Oh, he wasn't on the lineup.
Oh, I know. I
Yeah,
know.
like he just wasn't in the lineup. And so I don't okay, he's practicing every day. Okay. I, he's got to be playing if he's fully fit, like they have implied he is. He's out on the practice field with the team, full activities. He's not on the injury report last time I checked, and he's not making the lineup. Like, okay, you'd have to be
He
playing
was
pretty bad, but I don't believe that that's possible either.
he was
So,
he was one of our best players
right,
for the latter half of the season until he got hurt. And I mean, honestly, for the whole season, when he's been on the field, he's a difference
yeah,
maker every single time. So
right,
I don't understand what we're missing. If there's something they're hiding, they're trying to
right.
cover up that he's got a bigger injury than it is. But like, that again, that goes down to that's like my biggest pet peeve with
Hockey.
soccer injuries and
Uh,
hockey injuries, right? Is same with soccer. Soccer doesn't give you a ton of info in the injuries. They give you slightly more than hockey. I
right,
mean, hockey, it's like, oh yeah, the guy tore his meniscus and blew out his other ACL, and they're like, oh yeah, he's got a lower body injury. It might be 2 to 4 weeks, and
right,
then it comes out like, oh, we just heard he had surgery today, and it's like, you knew he's having surgery 3 weeks
right,
ago.
right, right. Yeah, I just I don't know, but like he's one of those players that I feel like we need to be successful in. I mean,
He
we're
has the
not.
high energy of Stroud with
Yes.
better touch,
Yes.
and in the playoffs, he's my initial sub on the right side
Yeah.
if
Well,
he's not
especially if he's
starting.
not, yeah, if he's not starting. Right, right.
Like
But
over Stroud, like he's
oh
got the
well,
energy, he
yeah.
can press, and he's got touch.
Right. Well, because that right side, in theory, to me, that right side is Indy and Alm, one subbing for the other. And I don't, depending on who feels better that day is who you start, like who feels more fit. Um, but and the other thing is okay, Ostrak has had moments in terms of game time. He has had moments where we have thought, okay, he is something special, right? He can be really, really something. But then they're just very, few and far in between this year, and he's disappeared even when he's out there a lot of times. Now, that being said, I think that his ceiling is very, very high, and I'm hoping that next year we see him take a big jump because we're gonna probably move AZ on by next summer, and Ostrak would be the natural replacement for his spot, but like it's frustrating to me to see Ostrak get minutes when Alm is supposedly fit. And I think Alm has been a more productive player for us this year.
Ostrak has been productive, but he's been only really seen him be productive in a substitute role. And
Right.
that's concerning for me for him long term.
Right. Well, and it's not just that, it's that we see him, he'll sub in 4 or 5 games in a row, and then you see something, and then it'll be another 4 or 5 games before he really stands out again, you know.
But I mean, when you're playing 15 minutes, 20
Well,
minutes a game,
right.
it's
Right.
hard, and it goes back to the same
Subbing
thing, right?
earlier.
We've got a lot of good players, and we don't sub early. We're not, trying to take the game into our own hands, and we have such a depth of players that are all at a very similar level of skill.
Yeah.
They have different strengths, right? But
Right. But
their overall,
overall,
if you looked
yeah.
at their, if you looked at their FIFA ratings, if you were, or whatever,
Right.
EAFC now or whatever it's called, if you looked at their ratings, they're all going to be, they should all be pretty similar. Like their overall
Yeah.
ratings are all going to be pretty similar.
Right.
And so how do you make time for all these guys, and how do you do that? Well, you need to sub earlier because they need game minutes, but you
Right.
also need your stars and the guys that you really believe in. You need to see if they can go 90. I mean, there's so much there, and it makes me happy I'm not Carnell, because it's freaking headache to even really start
Oh,
thinking about.
absolutely.
But guys like Celio need more time. Guys like Stroud still need to get their minutes. Alm needs minutes.
Right.
Ostrak needs minutes. Big Sam, Giochini, Klaus. You have those three. You've got to navigate that with. And then
Right.
we haven't even brought up Thoresen.
Right. Who we have not seen since maybe Minnesota, which I mean he was looking, his last few appearances have not looked outstanding. But I kind of thought when we got him that this was like a 1 to 2 year development type of move. So I'm okay with that. Because I don't, he just joined the team like 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. Like we can't expect everyone to be Anthony Marquette. I could immediately take a starting job from, a
A
guy who's
starting job at minimum
right,
wage.
right, right. Great business salutes. I was going to say about the subs. I don't know if you saw this, but I think Matt Doyle had an article on MLS website, MLSsoccer.com or whatever. Apparently, BC has used more of his subs than any other coach in the league. So he's actually like the most subbing coach, which I thought was like mind blowing. But a lot of those subs are, like we said, with Ostrak and Celio this
80th
week, 80s.
minute,
Yeah,
85th minute.
right. And so it's just he's using available subs, but they're not getting really a ton of minutes, I don't think. But
I
whatever.
think it'll be, it is what it is. Again, I would have loved to have seen us, you know, play a more complete game. I mean, we played an okay game. I would have liked to have seen us have more chances against Seattle. And we're not even
Yeah.
talking about if Klaus, and was it the 3rd minute or 4th minute of
Yeah.
the
Like
game,
right
doesn't
off the
sky
game.
it into the
Yeah.
supporters section, which is not, like him.
Right.
But if that doesn't happen, the game has a completely different feel. We're immediately up 1-0 right off the get. And
Right.
it changes. It forces Seattle to really push at us to try to get a
Hmm.
goal, because they needed points, which then
Right.
plays into our style as as a high pressing team.
Right. Yeah. I was not upset with how we played this game. Okay. I'm taking out the second goal, the own goal, right? That means nothing to me. That's bad luck, like literally bad luck. And if you take that out, that's a 1-0 loss against the second seed, like the team that like everyone thinks is going to be extremely dominant through the playoffs. Um, and I think we played well against them. I mean, you're not going to win every game, but I mean it's a close game against a very good opponent. And a few things go differently early on for us in attack. A few things go differently on the one play that they capitalized on, and it's a different ball game. Like that, the margins were very thin for that game.
Yeah, and they're going to be thin in the playoffs too, right? So like that's
Right.
to be expected. Looks like there's a brawl breaking out behind me, but there's
There is.
so much that goes into that. And I think it'll be interesting to see. Again, I'm still curious who we roll out for this first match in the playoffs. I think you and we've probably got the lineup fairly close based on what you and I've talked about.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think I think the
I
big
bet we
thing is,
do.
do they roll out Big Sam with Klaus, or do they go out with Giochini and Klaus? Because Klaus will be up there.
Right. I also I wondered that. I wonder a little bit about the fullback pairings. Just because Johnny Russell will be back, and I could see coach justifying putting Hebert in over Marcanic to then put Watts on the right. Because if you look at when Nerwinski came back, it was when Marcanic started taking off. And so then he's got a defensive minded right back with an offensive minded left back instead of how it was before. And I could see him flipping that. It's not necessarily saying what I think he should do. I'm just saying I could
I
see him
I
doing it
think with Johnny Russell playing on the left primarily,
on our left.
um,
Yeah.
uh, he,
Doesn't he?
yeah,
Isn't he a right winger?
hmm
I have memories of him putting
he
Nielsen on
is,
skates on that
yeah,
first
yeah, yeah,
like game.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I get what you're saying. I think having Nielsen there is a big piece. So I don't know what they do. Having Russell back for this game is concerning, but
Right.
I wish he played on their left, right, and I was marked up more
Yes.
against like a Nerwinski, because
Right.
Russell's not going to just take the top off.
No.
He's going to beat you. He's going to try to beat you with skill, and Nerwinski plays well against those guys.
Right.
I I still think Marcanic is your best left back and has to start. It doesn't mean he stays in the whole game.
Right.
But we'll see what happens, because he got heated in that Kansas City game and got lucky to not get a red card.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
it, you know,
Did you
and
notice?
Davis from Kansas City is also my least favorite Kansas City player.
So that second game against, or the third game against Kansas City, technically, I guess it in my mind it's the second because it was the second one we had in September. But like, have you noticed that after Marcanic came back, like Stroud's antics, like we don't really notice them as much, and it's all like what Marcanic is doing now, and he really got under Davis's skin in
Mm-hmm.
that second home game against SKC.
Did you? I assume you watched the wild card game.
Yeah, I watched the
Did you
wild
see
card
how
game.
easy it was to get under Davis's
Yeah,
skin?
yeah,
Because
he was
Davis
pissy the whole game.
launched his shoulder into the I don't remember who the guy's back was on San Jose now. Then San Jose knocked him off the ball, which, if you look back at it, should have been a foul.
Right,
He turned around and tried to poke at the ball, missed, and clipped Davis a little bit, and was like, "My bad, dude. Let me help you up." And you
right,
can see Davis get yelling, "Go fuck
right,
off!" Every time he was like,
right,
"Dude, I'm just trying to help you up. Like, we're like
right,
5 minutes into the game. Like,
right.
what are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, there was also a tactical foul on Davis late in the game, and he lost it at that. I'm like, okay, come on, man. Like, a lot of pro players are making that tactical foul. Like you would have done it yourself if you had gotten beat that way. Like, that's the game.
I see Davis as the guy that we need to go after,
Yep.
because I think we can get in his head.
Yeah. So
So
Marcanic and Stroud, same side, just double, just double it.
no, because I do not want Stroud on my left side.
Okay, so
So
I think we have the same players in our lineup. What formation are you wanting to use? Let's start with that.
I think it ends up playing as a I think it shifts depending on what's going on between a 4-4-2-2-2 and a
Mm-hmm.
4-4-2 diamond, kind of depending on how
Right,
Leuven's pressing up.
right,
But I think you have Leuven and Blom kind of towards the back. I think you have AZ and Indy pushing more up.
right.
I think you have Big Sam and Klaus up top. And then I
Yeah,
think you've got Marcanic, Nielsen, Parker, and Nerwinski. And
right.
you and I
And
talked
Ben
about this
Lunt in
before,
goal.
but yeah, Ben Lunt, no, Roman Berkey better be starting this game. But um, I think, and the other thing to highlight about Nerwinski is he had some great balls into the
Oh
box
yeah,
again. He has looked
yeah,
better and better.
Yeah.
he's coming back into form.
Yeah.
Um,
I think he
yeah,
has a better cross than Watts. I think Watts plays to the touchline better or more. But I think Nerwinski does deliver a better cross.
I think Watts does play to the touchline more, and they're a different style player.
Right. They're just
But
different.
I think overall Nerwinski's service is better. So
Hmm.
Akil Watts, I love you, so please don't hold this against me. But he gets down to the touchline, but I don't always feel like the service he's playing is with a
Hmm.
purpose.
Right.
Where I feel like when Nerwinski gets the ball and he's putting the ball in, he is putting it where he thinks the players are going to be, and he's sending it in
Right.
with a purpose.
Right. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And I agree with your lineup too. That's who I would start in this game. Is everyone you said. I wouldn't make a single change to that lineup. That's 100% current top 11 to me. Um, so Johnny Russell scares us because he's Johnny Russell. He can score from anywhere. Um, what else like concerns you about this game?
So my biggest concern for this game, and it's the reason that I wanted San Jose in this round,
Sure,
it's a rivalry matchup and emotions are going to be high. And anytime
absolutely.
emotions are high and it's a rivalry game, there's that chance for crazy shit to happen that, and it's hard to control. It's hard to explain, but we've all seen it in sports when you get on that emotional high and you start getting after it,
Oh,
things
yeah,
change,
for
different
sure.
things happen, and you play at a different level. And so, Kansas City, has been the best team in the West since, was it like May, whatever date it was that they've
So
thrown out.
basically, since they played us, basically the first time.
And it, since then, they've been the best team. Eh, My thing is, yeah, they've been the best team in the West, but we saw what we did to them when they came to town. That's not
Right.
to say that they didn't have chances, because they did.
Sure, but we also
And they
barely
didn't have
lost to
John,
them
and
there.
they didn't have Johnny Russell. But yeah, exactly. That was my next point, is when we went to their house, we barely lost, and they did have Johnny Russell. And
Right.
God, whatever the hell that ref's name is, and blanking on it right now.
He was the ref last night too.
Yeah, he was the
Alan
ref last
something.
night, and there was some blatant things that he just kept letting. It's like, I thought he was going to lose control of the game last night again.
Right.
Um, and so whatever ref gets this game in this
Hmm.
series is really going to have to be careful, because it is a rivalry game, because there's bad blood already. Needs
Right.
to be careful to keep the game in check so that players and things don't get out of hand. And that's from both sides.
Right. And I do agree with that concern. So my view for why I preferred Kansas City, other than like the fact that I couldn't go to any of the Kansas City games this year, and now I get to, and I'm selfish, is so watching that game last night, San Jose played exactly like how I thought they would and how I know they would have played against us, which is like a less talented team would approach this, right? They're going to play in a low block. They're going to play behind the ball, make sure that the other team, that their opponents keep the ball, which is a weakness of ours. Like we would really struggle with that. It would really play into San Jose's hands to play that game. And then anything could happen in a penalty shootout. Whereas I don't think the talent disparity between us and Sporting Kansas is that as large as it is, I think, with San Jose, or at least perceived as large. And I think that SKC is going to be more interested and willing to have the ball, not only because it's more their play style, but because they feel like they can play and they can beat us. But that plays into our strength. We want them to have the ball and we want to be able to press them and do our thing. So that's my thought. I don't want it to go to shootouts. I don't want it to go to shootouts, especially against Sporting Kansas. Like, definitely do not want it to go to shootouts.
So I and I think that's what makes me nervous about this round.
Mm-hmm.
They have the best goalie all time in
Oh yeah.
MLS history in shootouts. But here's the thing with him. All you have to do is hesitate and read him,
Mm-hmm.
because he commits to a side. That's why he saves so
Right.
many. He commits to a side before majority of the time they take
Right.
their shot. And all you have to do is hesitate and then put
Mm-hmm.
it in, and you're fine. it's
Right.
not like it's not like he does good, but he commits and he takes a hop over so that he is covering up that whole side.
Right.
But if you hesitate, you can put it, okay, yeah, he's jumped to that side, I'm going to put it in the other side netting. Problem is, yeah, I know some of our players could do that, but I don't
Hmm.
know that all of our players could.
Right. I think the first one that San Jose made last night was actually that way, where they hesitated right before they did it, and then they just, kicked it pretty much down the middle. Um, and I think someone else tried that, but then he recovered, or maybe that was the San Jose keeper. I don't remember. There was
That was
another one
the
that
that was no,
was
yeah, the San Jose keeper. So that was Polito.
right, right, right.
Polito tried to do that and then
Daniel.
the second kick from San Jose, they just rocked into the third deck.
Right,
And there's not
right,
even three decks in Kansas, so that
right.
should tell
That's
you
how far it
something.
went. Yeah. Um,
Side note,
watched.
favorite moment of the game last night was San Jose's trying to get the clock to run out, trying to do their thing. The
Mhm.
goalie gets down, gets on the ball, and gets up and is like, hey, and they popped the ball. Did you catch that? And they
No,
had
I
to
did
trade
not.
out the ball.
Right,
They legit popped the ball, and he's like, I don't want to throw this out and give them a corner kick. So like, look, this is popped. Can I trade this out?
right. That's some excellent, excellent play right there. It's perfectly legal time wasting. I'm here for playing within the rules for being shitty like that, as long as it's not against us.
As long as it's
I
against Kansas.
right. One thing I noticed watching last night, and I watched a fair amount of Leagues Cup, which was all shootouts, right? No extra time. And it looks like it's the players that are on the field at the end of the game that get to take part in the shootout. You might be able to sub your goalkeeper. I'm not 100% on
That
that.
I hate to break it to you, that's standard FIFA rules.
Right, right. Great. So what I'm getting to is, yeah, but like I haven't seen many other shootouts because I don't watch enough, and that happens so rarely. Like most other leagues, like don't do this.
I'm giving you a hard time. So for those of you who don't know, John grew up in a small town that didn't have soccer. I grew up in a small town that did have soccer. So
Yeah, doesn't matter. So regardless of you being a jerk, you have to have all of your people who can take that on the field at the end of the game, right? Which changes how you're going to sub for this one, right? So then your starter, like, I could justify, like, okay, if my choice is Jared Stroud or Indy Vasilev in the shootout, I'm taking Indy, which means I'm starting Stroud, so I can sub Indy on, and maybe that's a sub at half. I don't know, but that's you know,
I just don't think you can play the game that way. Um, and that's where I think having Giacchini on the bench, I think he's your penalty kick sub late in the game
for who though?
because
Who would you sub him in for? Az?
it doesn't matter anywhere. If there's 3 to 5 minutes left in the game, and you're pushing, you sub Giacchini and you make sure he's on the field. You shift back and you account for that. Yeah, but my guess is, somebody like an AZ or somebody. I wouldn't want AZ being one of my five.
Yeah, probably not. No. Who are
I
your first five? And it
and
doesn't
the
necessarily have
order
to be in order,
being
but
okay. Um, Leuven, no brainer. Giacchini,
sure,
Big Sam,
sure,
Indy.
sure. You're missing the
Um,
obvious one.
I'm missing the obvious one in Klaus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Five. I'm probably the same. Um, I can't really justify anyone else being in there. Don't get me wrong. I do think if this went like full 11, which happened several times in Leagues Cup where they went through the full 11 to do it, I do think Berkey could go top ends, right? Like,
Dude, nothing would make me happier than to see and I like Kansas's goalie. I like Mil. Yeah,
yeah,
I think he's a fun goalie to watch. He's intense. Berkey's intense. Nothing would make me happier than if those two had to like square up
right.
against each other.
You know what? No one else should even get a chance. It should just be keeper wars, right?
Just back and forth.
Just back and forth, right? Absolutely. Like we don't even have to play the game. Like let's just do that for 90
Now
minutes.
you're scaring me, John. So slow down. I know you're drinking sparkling water and feel super healthy and
That's true.
excited right now, but
I'm
come
healthy.
down a notch.
I'm healthy. I
You know,
take care of myself, guys. If you're listening to this, I take good care of myself. I'm very fit.
who do you this first game?
Okay.
What's your predicted score?
Oh, fuck that. I don't know. 8-6 us. Anything could happen in this game.
I have it 3-1 us. And the only reason I say three is because I think Kansas is salty and is going to fight to not let us get a fourth goal a third time. I don't remember who put the meme out there. It's my favorite meme of the week so far. But it's the one where it says, if we had it had Sporting Kansas sign,
Oh,
it goes, if we had a nickel for every time we gave up 4 goals against the newest expansion team in MLS, we'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's odd that it's happened twice.
right. It was you, Ms. Gunner, on Reddit, who at least posted it, the one that you sent it to me, because it linked their name into it. And I am also on Reddit and see her name a lot on the city Reddit page.
I was rolling with that today.
Yeah, that was good. But it's odd that it happened twice, right? Um, yeah, so let me ask you this, okay? Let's presume that we win this series, okay? Because I don't want to talk about us losing. I'm only going to talk about what happens if we win. Would you rather win it in 2 games or in 3 games?
So from my competitor's side, I would rather win in two and move on and be done, not
Sure.
lower the risk of injury and do all that stuff.
Right.
From the greedy, I want as much soccer as I can get side, and
Sure.
especially soccer here where I can go to another game, three would be a ton of fun. But I do not want to go three. I would rather us wrap it up, win the first two, and just move on.
Right. Right. I think I want to do whatever happens in the other series for like like our round 2 potential opponents. I want to mirror what they do because I don't want them to have an extra week off, or I don't want us to have an extra week off compared to them, because after round 1, I think it's after round 1, there's that an international break. So you could like play 2 games and be off 3 weeks. Not a huge fan of that. Um, but I also, if we come back in that third game, right, it would be tied 1-1, and like at that point, like Kansas could easily justify, like, no, we're just gonna low block and give them the ball and see what happens. And I don't know, I don't really want to play a game. I don't want to watch a game that's boring like that. So, especially because I think we could lose in the shootout. So,
The thing is, the shootout's such a 50-50 crapshoot, and
right,
you and I've talked about this before. And it's goddamn near impossible to predict a shootout.
right,
Very few people are Dibu Martinez for Argentina
right.
that can not just cheat to one side like Melia, and Kansas
Mm-hmm,
City doesn't get away with it because at the Premier League and other leagues, you do
mm-hmm.
that, and players who knew exactly what I said stutter step and put it on the
Right,
other side.
right.
Blues looks like they just scored.
Yep,
Yes, they
yep.
did. So they're up 3-0 for those of you who are following that game. More
Or watching
importantly,
us
though,
and seeing it live on YouTube
yeah.
tomorrow.
Uh, so very few goalies though are Dibu Martinez that can really impact penalty kicks like the way he did against France in the
Right,
World Cup final. Um, so it's a crapshoot. I don't like it. I don't like my feeling like our playoff chances are coming down to a coin flip. So we need to take care of business in regulation, and I
right,
think we can take care of business in regulation. But we'll see we'll see exactly how it plays out starting Sunday.
right, right. Last question I've got for you. Okay. Presuming we win, because that's the only outcome that I'm willing to think about at the moment. Would you rather play Houston or RSL in round 2?
They're coming to us,
They're coming to a single
which
game
is
elimination.
huge. But I I'd rather play RSL. I
I
think we end
think,
up playing Houston because Houston's I
right.
think the better team, and I think they're going to come out of it. But
Yeah.
Houston has a couple of players on their team, as we're all aware, that can be difference makers and
Hmm.
big plays. And I think RSL is an easier team for us to get in the head of. Yeah, we lost, we went to them, but we were playing a very
Yeah,
heavily
reverse.
rotated squad. Huh?
They won when they came here. The game at RSL was the fifth game in the
Oh,
streak at the
you're right. You're right.
beginning
You're
where
right.
we
Yeah,
where
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
scored like four in the second half or whatever.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, for whatever reason, was thinking of Vancouver, the Whitecaps, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a shit game too.
that second game is what I had in my mind when we were talking. But but no, RSL I think is fine, but RSL is the team. The thing that makes me concerned with them is the same thing that you were talking about. When it's a one game winner take all, they're going to play that
Hmm.
low block, and they're
Yeah.
going to do that the whole game. Whereas Houston's going to get after it more, but Houston has some big time players that
Hmm.
can make you pay. So I would rather play RSL because I think, having time to game plan for them to focus on, that
Hmm.
will get the job done. But I think we'll play Houston, and honestly, I like my odds against both of those two teams.
Yeah. In City Park, I agree. I do think RSL, thought I had heard that they're having some injury issues going on right now as well, which, could make them even less, potent in attack. Houston, Houston can they can play very, very good soccer, right? They really can. And they've got a lot of guys on their team who can take shots from positions that you would not normally think were dangerous positions. And that's one of the things that scares me about playing Houston. Just very thankful that we have home field advantage though, because I'd rather play them here than there. So
Oh, 100%. uh, I have another question for you. You were
okay.
watching the game last night.
I was.
What were your thoughts on Kansas Park and how full it was?
It'll be fuller in 2 weeks, 10 days, I guess, really. It's gonna be
Yeah,
red out at
I don't
Children's Mercy
I
Park.
I don't understand how, on a playoff game, I get it was a school night, but it wasn't that late of a game. It's
I
no
mean, this
worse than the
is
game on Sunday, but it goes back to, and again, we have a much more rabid fan base, but I mean, even our fans aren't happy about the 9 p.m. start, nor should we be, being the one seed. I
right,
still think that's a bogus thing. And again, I know it comes down to the fact that Fox wanted this game, so they paid for the rights, and that was the time slot they had. But
right,
I think MLS should have done a better job protecting their top team.
right. Well, so the emptiness in that park, it comes down to, yeah, okay. And this whole weekday game thing, like I get it, but I don't see how people are treating this any different than like the NBA or MLB, right? Like those stadiums sell out for weekday playoff games all the time, like all
Yeah,
the
but
time.
those games don't start at 9 p.m.
Well,
or
sure,
9:30
that
p.m.
sure. So
That's the part that I think more
right,
people are angry about. If it
right,
were a weeknight game that started at 7:30, I don't think you hear any complaints.
right, right.
Well, there'll still be a few, because people are
Sure,
people and love to bitch about whatever
absolutely,
they can bitch about. I mean, you've met me. I bitch about everything.
right. Yeah, sure. Um, the one thing that I think in this, I think you and I have talked a lot about this offline, but never really online because we focus more on St. Louis. But there's a lot of teams in MLS that are not necessarily highly relevant in their markets anymore. And I think Kansas City is one of the more relevant teams. That's partly because professional sports wise, like, they have the Chiefs, but the Chiefs don't really play at the same time as uh soccer, and then the Royals are the Royals. Um, so like, and Sporting Kansas has been one of the, more historical teams in MLS. Like,
They're
I
one of the
mean,
original teams,
they're
Kansas
one
City
of the original
Wizards.
teams and they've
They've
had
got two
success,
titles.
two titles, right? Um, but if that game had been in Chicago last night, right, which I know other conference, but like Chicago would have been dead, right? I did not. I caught parts of the early game, Red Bulls and Charlotte. I didn't think it was particularly full. Um,
No, it was not. I'm just taking a stab at Kansas, but I agree. It's an issue across MLS, and that the markets that they're in, they're not promoting the product.
Right.
Is how I feel like, right? And they are competing, right? So that every other major team has a ton of other things and a ton of competing priorities
Hmm.
sports wise, which leads to all of these issues. And
Right.
if you're in New York, well, you not only do you have another New York soccer team, so you splitting your fan base.
Right.
Not that, I mean, New York's enough people to do it, but you've got two baseball teams and two football teams and two hockey teams. And, they've got the
NBA.
WNBA and the NBA, and they've got two NBA teams. And
Right.
it's, you're okay. Well, what game do you want to go see? What's more important to you? Well, soccer's
Right.
still not, it's a lot bigger than it used to be,
Right.
but it is, I mean,
Well, and New York is a market. New York is a market that MLS should be thriving in. Okay, and I get that it's a very crowded media landscape there with biggest names in the world for some of the other for their respective sports that are there. But it's a diverse city. It's huge. Okay. And the two teams that are in New York are the two largest, ownership groups in the world as far as teams go. Like if Red Bulls and City Football Group wanted to be successful with their MLS teams, they would be, right? They don't prioritize it. And that's frustrating. And part of that is the fan experience, right? The freaking NYCFC play in either City Stadium or in Yankee Stadium for like their home games, like which is just have you ever I don't know if you've ever watched one of them, but it's weird,
mhm.
especially when they're at Yankee Stadium. It's like a very small field. They're playing in the outfield and it's tiny and it's weird.
It's not well, it's not like they don't have the money, and that's what's frustrating, right? And I know MLS is making a bigger push for teams to build their own stadiums and get designated playing spaces because
Hmm.
of the fan experience, right?
Right.
If you're in a football field, or if you're on a baseball field, or wherever it might be,
Hmm.
the fan experience isn't the same. I mean, we're so spoiled with City Park and the way it's
Oh yeah,
designed and how close you are to
absolutely.
the action, no matter where you're sitting.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And so, but you wouldn't have that same feeling if you were at the Dome, right? And the Dome,
Oh God, no.
you know,
Oh.
and the same thing for Kansas, right? When they played at Arrowhead, it
Hmm.
wasn't the same as where they're at now at Children's Mercy
Right.
Park. And so there's a lot that goes into that fan experience. There's a lot that St. Louis that St. Louis has done right, from the food and the vendors and bringing in local things that are different and exciting instead of just your standard ballpark food,
Hmm.
to having, encouraging these pregame tailgates, to embracing things. And then it doesn't hurt that, St. Louis is the first soccer capital of America, and you have a massive soccer following already. So yeah, let's capitalize on that.
Hmm.
I think another place that you see them doing really, really well at capitalizing and taking advantage of this is LAFC.
Oh yeah. And I mean the
So you
Galaxy
can
is still
compare the
relevant
LA, yeah, and the Galaxy is too, but you can compare the LA market to the New
due to New
York
York.
market,
Yeah. Yeah.
and look at what the LA teams are doing compared to the New York
Right.
teams.
Right. Yeah. I mean both of those teams and LA Galaxy have not been that great this year. And they weren't that great last year. And well, I think they were okay last year. They were better last year than this year. Irrelevant. Um, but like there's still teams that matter in their landscape, right? But like look at Dallas, right? Dallas is a pretty historical team. They've been thought to have the best academy in MLS for like a decade. Um, and they really struggle as well. Now I've talked to some people from Dallas, and that's basically because Dallas is so obsessed with the Cowboys that nothing else matters, even like with the Rangers being on a a really good run, and now they're in the World Series. That like local media
Let's
wise, I've heard that it's
go
not.
Monty.
It's right. It's right. Who do you want to win that series?
Honestly, I'm cheering for Jordan Montgomery, so I'm cheering for the Rangers.
Interesting. I mean, I want Monty to win his games, but I think I want the Diamondbacks to win. But that's just me. but because of the Cowboys obsession that like apparently it like maybe it is now because it's the World Series, but going like for most of the playoffs, it wasn't really like talked about, like, right? Like the Cardinals are in the playoffs, like this city like almost shuts down for 3 weeks. I don't know. We're a sports city though.
We are, and we love all of our sports, right? If you put a good product on the field, St. Louis will respond. If you put a crap product and your name's Stan Kroenke, you can go fuck yourself. So,
That's it. Mic
Stan
drop.
Kroenke, if you're whenever you listen to this, because I know you will, we hate you.
We're thankful you sold the team. Well, I guess he didn't. You moved the team. You sold out.
Yeah, it's fine. Nobody likes Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke doesn't like Stan Kroenke. Uh,
That's it. That's it. I have nothing else to say. That's the end right there.
um, yeah. So I don't have anything else for tonight. I think it's going to be an exciting time. The game's going to be a blast. I'm ready to weather the freezing cold and rain and watch St. Louis City take on Sporting Kansas and send them back home with another miserable defeat at the hands of St. Louis City SC.
Soccer
One, I
God's willing.
so that's all I have for St. Louis City. I have two last things, Cardinals related, and I want your opinions on them.
Okay.
The Yadier Molina rumors of becoming a coach.
Uh-huh.
There are rumors that the Padres are approaching him to be
Mm-hmm.
their manager.
They're hiring Mike Schilt.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Schilt and one other guy. Like I've seen a couple of things from that have basically
I
said
was
that
just going
they're
to ask you how terrible would it look to see Yadi in a Padres uniform?
yeah, I would no longer like kind of like the Padres. But I was reading some things earlier in the week that basically said they're opening it up for external interviews, but like they pretty much already decided it's one of those two.
There's one other guy that is looking to make a push to become a manager in the next couple of years, and teams are starting to talk about this guy. He's only been a coach and out of the league for a few years. He was a gold glove caliber defensive center fielder, played great ball, and is now a first base coach and helping and working on Skip Schumacher's staff. Take it or leave it, John Jay becomes the manager of the Cardinals in the next 3 to 5 years.
It's totally dependent on what Yachty does. I'm gonna leave it.
So
I, I
my
I'm not
thought on
against I'm not against it, and I could see it happening if Yachty gets other opportunities, but I think Yachty's holding out for this job.
I think he is too. I also wonder, because he has so many other competing interests, if he wants to be involved but not truly be the guy. And in that case, that's where I see John Jay or Skip Schumacher, if they can pry him away from the Marlins, coming back. I also think it's exciting because with Skip and John Jay being teammates on that 2011
Mm-hmm.
World Series team, and now to see them coaching together and taking teams to the playoffs is exciting. But I've read multiple articles recently about talking about John Jay making the
Yeah,
jump to a manager role, potentially even next season if the right job came
right.
along. But I think
Yeah.
I think he's 2 to 3 years away.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know he's thought of very highly. I had seen not this week, but a few weeks ago, a lot of talk about him making that jump next year. There's a fair number of teams, if I remember right, that don't have managers in place yet. Um, so I don't know. I could see him getting that.
Yeah, no, I get
But
it. So, but no, those are my last two pieces for you. I thought I just wanted to bring them up because they've been on the forefront of my brain and my noggin, which does not work very well. So if I don't say something now, I'll forget, because that's what happens.
that's
More
how it goes.
importantly, if you're enjoying our podcast, please like, subscribe, and follow for more content. We have some more exciting news coming up about different things that we are going to be doing to try to involve you, our listeners and followers. We will tomorrow, and depending on when we actually get this video posted, you may still have time to go in and comment follow, subscribe to try to get entered in for the Cardinals hockey jersey giveaway. But we'll get that all finished up and get rolling. With all of that said, Stan Kroenke, I hate you. Good night.